If you bring her to the Ridgeview house, you will regret it. I said it across our marble kitchen island. My husband barely looked up from his phone, just smirked. He called me paranoid and said it was just a work event for his capital fund. He has no idea what I built into those walls. He thinks he's bringing her to the house I decorated. He's actually walking her into the trap I built. My name is Elena Ward. I am 35 years old, and the granite island in our kitchen feels about a mile wide this morning. Across that polished expanse sits my husband, Graham Sinclair. His head is bowed, his thumb doing that fast, hypnotic swipe across his phone screen. The silence in our kitchen is heavy, broken only by the sound of his frictionless scrolling. If you bring her to the Ridgeview house, you will regret it. He does not look up, not fully. Just a flicker of his eyes over the phone's polished edge, followed by that low, dismissive chuckle he has perfected. It is the sound he uses for bankers he finds inferior, now, for his wife. "Elena, you're being paranoid," he says, his voice flat. He finally sets the phone face down on the counter, a gesture meant to signal absolute finality. "It is a work event, that is all. It's for Halcyon Ridge Capital." He picks up his coffee mug, realizes it is cold, and sets it down with a click of annoyance. "It's the Ridgeview preview. We have talked about this for weeks. It is a simple cocktail party. We will introduce the asset to the new investor pool." He leans forward, adopting the patient, slightly bored tone he uses when explaining derivatives to people he thinks are idiots. "Sienna Hart is the guest of honor. She is our new creative partner. She is the ticket, Elena, to the next level of money, the kind of money we deserve." I do not react to the name, Sienna. I just watch him. My gaze is steady. I notice the coffee he let go cold. I notice the watch. It is new. A Patek Philippe, brushed rose gold, the kind that costs more than a luxury sedan. He did not own it last week. And the shirt, a deep charcoal gray linen, soft, expensive, buttoned just so. He has never worn it for me, in my head. The part of me that spent 8 years as a legal assistant before interior design took over. I am already drafting the deposition notes. Exhibit A watch, purchased circa 2 weeks prior to confrontation. Exhibit B shirt, new, unfamiliar scent. Exhibit C, utter, reptilian detachment. This is not a threat. "Graham," I say. My voice is low, steady. I am proud of that. There is no tremor. I am not angry. I am not being dramatic. He laughs at that. A full, genuine laugh this time, showing teeth. "Not being dramatic. You are sitting there timing my downfall over a cocktail party. You always did love the theater of it all, even when you were just filing briefs." He pushes back his chair, the sound scraping against the imported Italian limestone. He is done. He is dismissing me. He turns his back to me to grab his keys from the bowl by the door. "And this is the part where I talk to you. Yes, you, the one watching, the one listening, the one who believes that boundaries are just lines drawn in the sand, easily washed away by the tide of big money and bigger egos. I want to thank you for underestimating what a woman puts into her own home. If you believe walls are just drywall and paint, you can probably stop listening now. But if you have ever had that feeling of gut-punch certainty that the infrastructure around you knows the truth, stay and see what happens at Ridgeview." Graham thinks Ridgeview House is just another asset in his portfolio, a showpiece, a very expensive, beautifully decorated box to prove how far he has come from his middle-class upbringing. He has forgotten who designed it. He has forgotten who drew the plans for the renovation when he first bought it, before he had Halcyon Ridge, before he had Sienna. He has forgotten who was there, clipboard in hand, when the contractors ripped the walls down to the studs. I know where every wire runs. I know the exact R value of the acoustic insulation. I know precisely what is hidden behind the reclaimed walnut panels in the great room, because I am the one who had them opened up and sealed again, just 1 year ago. I look past his shoulder, through the floor-to-ceiling glass of our kitchen. The skyline is sharp and bright, but I'm not seeing the city. I am seeing Ridgeview, 30 miles away, nestled in the hills, It is not a house in my mind. It is a vault, a beast, sleeping soundly, just waiting for the right key. He zips his briefcase. He adjusts the cuff of that new, expensive watch. He's about to walk out, still smiling that confident, dismissive smile of a man who has never, not once, faced a real consequence for his appetites. "Graham," I called out. He pauses, hand on the door, annoyed by the delay. "I mean it," I say, my voice perfectly level, carrying across the cold stone floor. "You bring her to the house I decorated. I will let that house answer you." For a second, just a split second, the confidence wavers. He stares at me. He does not understand the words. How can he to him? A house is wood and stone. To me, it is a hard drive. He processes it, files it under wife, hysterical, and shakes his head. The smirk returns. "I will see you tonight. Elena, try to wear a beige dress." The heavy front door closes with a pressurized, expensive thud. I do not move. I sit there in the crushing silence. The sound of his car engine fading down the drive. I look at his coffee cup, still sitting on the granite, a cold, bitter ring forming at the bottom. I reach out and put my hand around the mug. It is completely cold, just like me. I close my eyes and start running the timeline. The event is tomorrow night. Everything is ready. 8 years ago, Ridgeview was just a set of bad blueprints and a promising view. Graham Sinclair found me through a design magazine feature. He was new money then, all sharp angles and restless energy, eager to turn a badly built 70s ranch into a monument to his arrival. He called it a showcase asset. I called it a teardown. He hired me anyway. Back then, my life was a split screen. By day, I was at a boutique design firm, arguing with contractors about tile grout. By night, from 6 p.m. to sometimes 2 in the morning, I was a legal assistant at Monroe Vale Trial Support. We were not the big-shot lawyers. We were the people they hired to make their cases make sense. We built the timelines. We processed the discovery. We found the one email, buried in thousands, that proved a CEO was lying at Monroe Vale. I learned the one unassailable truth of high-stakes conflict: evidence always beats the narrative. Feelings get you sympathy. Facts get you the settlement. Graham loved my dual life. He found it fascinating. "So you draw pretty pictures all day, and then you hunt for smoking guns all night?" he asked me once, over samples of Italian marble. We started spending those material selection meetings talking about more than materials. He would drive us out to Ridgeview, the frame still skeletal against the sky, and we would walk the dirt floors. He would talk about his fund, Halcyon Ridge Capital, which at the time was just him, another guy, and a rented office. I would talk about structural integrity. He wooed me not with flowers, but with problems. "The architect says we cannot move this wall," he would challenge, and I would unroll my own drawings, the ones I stayed up all night redrafting. "Your architect is lazy," I would say. "The load is carried here, and here. If we sister this joist and run a steel flitch plate, you can have the 20-foot opening you want." He stared at me that day, the sun setting behind him. "You see through walls," he said, his voice quiet with what I mistook for awe. "You just look at a drawing and you see right through the goddamn walls." He loved that about me, until he did not. Ridgeview House became our project, then our story. We got married on its half-finished terrace. I quit Monroe Vale to focus on the house and my own growing design business. I did not just decorate Ridgeview, I built it. I was there when the old walls came down. I was the one who insisted on ripping out the ancient, shoddy electrical and plumbing. "We are doing this once, and we are doing it right," I told the foreman. "I want Cat 6 shielded cable to every room. I want dedicated conduit for low-voltage systems, separate from the main power. I want full acoustic insulation, rock wool, in all interior walls." The contractor thought I was insane. "Ma'am, this is a house, not a recording studio." "Do it," Graham said, backing me, basking in the glow of my competence. So I did. I know the precise cavity behind the fireplace in the master bedroom. I know there is a 3-inch void behind the custom walnut paneling in the great room. I know which floorboards in the attic lift up to reveal the junction boxes for the entire security grid. I know places where you could hide a safe, or a server, or a body, because I am the one who specified the depth of the 2x6 framing that created those spaces. Then, Halcyon Ridge Capital exploded. Graham went from being a hungry guy in a good suit to being the Graham Sinclair, and Ridgeview slowly changed. It was no longer our dream home. It became his strategic asset. It was the brand showroom. It was the main stage for the fund. The man who used to call me 5 times a day to ask my opinion on doorknobs now had his assistant send me calendar invites for his own life. Dinner with Graham, 8:00 p.m. They would read, as if I were a vendor. The man who loved to watch me see through walls now came home, stared at his phone, and treated me like a piece of the tasteful, neutral decor I had selected. The shift was gradual. Then it was sudden. The timeline in my head, the one I built like a case file, starts about 1 year ago. I went up to Ridgeview to check on the groundskeepers. Graham had been using it for small investor meetings, he said. I walked into the main living area. The light was beautiful, streaming in, illuminating a dark burgundy stain on the edge of the cream-colored silk rug. It was red wine, a Merlot. By the looks of it, we do not drink Merlot. Graham only drinks expensive Cabernet. I only drink Sancerre. I felt that cold click in my stomach, the one I used to get at Monroe Vale when I found the email that did not match the alibi. I continued my walkthrough. In the downstairs guest bathroom, the one with the black marble, I found a single hair clip. It was small, silver, shaped like a butterfly. It was not mine. I have never owned anything shaped like a butterfly. Then, in the master bedroom, I smelled it. Faint, but sharp. A perfume, floral, heavy on the tuberose. It was not my scent. It was clinging to the pillows, the ones I had custom-made from Belgian linen. I did not clean up. I did not cry. I went to the mudroom, where the smart home control panel and security hub are hidden inside a millwork cabinet I designed. I pulled up the system logs. I checked the smart lock for the front door. Graham's code had been used multiple times over the past 2 months. On Tuesdays, on Thursdays, always between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m., dates when I was in the city, in client meetings. Then I checked the exterior security cameras. How strange. The feed for the front gate camera and the driveway camera had been offline due to a connection error during those exact same time windows. Every single time. The camera system he paid $50,000 for did not just fail on schedule. It was being told to. I stood in the silence of that house, the house I had built. He was using it. He was using my house to betray me. And he was arrogant enough to think I was too stupid, or too in love, or too distracted by throw pillows, to ever find out. He thought I was a decorator. He forgot I was an investigator. I did not confront him. You never confront the target before you have all the evidence. You do not give them a chance to build a counter-narrative, to destroy the files, to hide the money. That night, I went home to our city apartment. I opened my laptop and created a new, encrypted folder. I named it Ridgeview Project Assets. I took screenshots of the smart lock logs. I took screenshots of the camera system's connection error messages, complete with their perfect timestamps. I photographed the wine stain. I put the silver butterfly hair clip in a small plastic evidence bag I still had from my old job. I started building my case. And now, looking at my calendar, the date of the Ridgeview preview is circled in red. Graham sees it as his launch party, his coronation. I see it as my deadline, the day Discovery closes, the day we go to trial. Sienna Hart, that was the name he started using. She arrived on the scene about 10 months ago, presented to me at a crowded benefit dinner. "This is Sienna Hart," Graham said, his hand resting just a fraction of a second too long on the small of her back. "She's our new brand strategist, a complete genius." She was young, maybe 28, with that kind of calculated, minimalist beauty that photographs perfectly for social media. She had, as Graham had pointedly told me, Something like 500,000 followers. She was, in his words, the one who was going to take the Halcyon Ridge brand to the next level. I just smiled, shook her hand, and recognized the scent. Tuberose, the same cloying, heavy floral I had smelled on the pillows at Ridgeview. After Sienna's arrival, Graham began to change. It was a series of small, predictable calibrations. He had worn the same clean, citrus and vetiver cologne for the entire 12 years I had known him. Suddenly, our bathroom smelled like loud and heavy, smoky woods, a scent so potent it felt like an announcement. He, a man who considered the elliptical machine an achievement, started going to the gym at 5:30 in the morning for high-intensity training. His suits, always well-made, became aggressively bespoke. His hair, once casually styled, now looked permanently sculpted. He was not just dressing for success. He was dressing for an audience of one, the proof I needed. The piece of evidence that moved my case from suspicion to fact came from her. I followed Sienna's public Instagram profile. It was a digital monument to her own perceived importance: first-class airport lounges, art gallery openings, and vaguely inspirational captions about curating your own narrative. One night, while Graham was supposedly at a bored dinner, her story popped up. It was a short video clip, a boomerang of her clinking a champagne flute with an unseen person. The caption, "Late nights, big moves." She was in focus, but I was not looking at her. I was looking at the wall behind her. I froze. I knew that wall. It was a hand-troweled white plaster finish, and mounted on it was a blackened steel single-arm sconce, a sconce I had sketched myself, argued with a blacksmith over, and had custom fabricated, a sconce that existed in only one place on earth: the main hallway of the Ridgeview house, right outside the master bedroom. I replayed the video, 10 times, 20, the angle, the plaster, the light. There was no doubt. I waited until the next morning. When he was pouring his second cup of coffee, I kept my voice light, breezy. "I saw Sienna's Instagram last night. It looked like a late one. Are you guys working at Ridgeview now?" He did not look up from his phone. He just sighed, the deep, put-upon sigh of a visionary being questioned by the help. "Yes, Elena. We are mapping out the entire brand experience for the preview. The house is the centerpiece. She needed to feel the space, to live in it." He finally looked at me, his eyes cold. "You are being a little sensitive about this, are you not? It is just business. You do not understand the scale of what we are building here. You are being too sensitive. You do not understand the business." That was the new gospel. He deployed it constantly. I started hearing the whispers, my remaining contacts in the financial world, the wives of his partners I sometimes had lunch with. They spoke carefully. Graham was planning something new, a spin-off fund, something separate from his original partners. He was tapping new money and doing it with a fresh new face. Everyone knew who the face was. His condescension at home became a daily ritual. One evening, I was excited. I had just landed a major client, a full-floor penthouse. I unrolled the blueprints on the kitchen island to show him. He glanced at them for no more than 3 seconds. "That's great, honey," he said, already turning back to his laptop. "Pillows and paint. It must be so relaxing to just worry about pillows and paint all day." He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Seriously, you should try to just relax and enjoy the life I'm giving you. Stop thinking so much." I smiled back. "You're right. I should." I went to my home office. I opened the encrypted folder, Ridgeview Project Assets. I created a new text file. I titled it Spousal Statements Log. I entered the date, the time, and his exact words. In my old legal support job, we called this building a pattern. This was the narrative he would use against me, his wife, unstable, fragile, dramatic, and completely ignorant of his very important, very secret business. But the real betrayal, the one that truly mattered, was never just about sex. It was about the money. He thought I was a decorator, He forgot I had set up the holding companies for our personal assets, including the LLC that owned the Ridgeview house. He forgot that I still had full administrative access to the bank accounts. I found it on a Thursday night. He was at a steak dinner with the new investors. I logged into the LLC's operating account. I saw a string of payments going back 6 months. Huge, round numbers, $50,000, $75,000, another $50,000, all paid to a single vendor. Summit Ridge Advisors, LLC. The memo line for each was the same: Ridgeview Consulting Renovation. My blood went cold. I did the Ridgeview renovation. I had not hired any consultants. I had not approved a single one of these payments. I ran a corporate search. Summit Ridge Advisors was a shell corporation, registered in Delaware 6 months prior, no website, no partners listed, just a registered agent's address. I kept digging. This was the discovery phase. I found another account I did not know existed. It was titled Halcyon Ridge SPV 1. An SPV, a special purpose vehicle, a self-contained legal entity designed to wall off financial risk, or in this case, to hide assets. I cross-referenced the dates. 3 days after a $50,000 payment went out from our house account to the Summit Ridge shell, a wire for $48,000 would appear in the SPV account. He was washing the money. He was taking it from our joint assets, running it through a ghost company, and pouring it into a new, secret fund, a fund that, I had no doubt, had only one signatory, him. I added up the transfers. It was nearly $300,000. This was not money for an affair. This was seed capital. And that is when I understood. The affair was just a messy human symptom. The real crime was this: the cold, logical, financial dismemberment of our life. He was not just planning a weekend. He was planning an exit. He was building a new life, a new fund, with a new partner, and he was using my money to do it. He was going to leave me behind with nothing but the pillows and paint. The next day, I drove to Ridgeview. I used my own code. The house was silent, smelling faintly of stale champagne and her perfume. I stood in the great room, in front of the 20-foot wide feature wall I had designed, built from reclaimed walnut planks. The wall he loved so much, the wall I had stared at for months on blueprints, the wall I knew, from my own structural drawings, had a 3-inch deep service void running its entire length. I ran my hand over the smooth, warm wood. He had brought her here. They had stood in this room, drank our wine, and planned the theft of my life. If these walls could talk, I whispered. The words echoed in the quiet room, and then the thought hit me. It was so sharp, so clear. It felt like a physical impact. If these walls could talk, it was a metaphor, a cliché. But what if it was not? What if they did not just talk? What if they could record? What if they could capture every whisper, every promise, every illegal financial projection? What if they could serve as a witness? I looked at the wall, not as a designer, but as the legal assistant I used to be. I saw the seams between the planks. I saw the conduit I had insisted they install. What if these walls did not just talk? What if they could testify? That was 1 year ago. The idea, once it formed, was absolute. I waited 2 days, drafting the proposal. I did not present it to Graham as a security measure. I presented it as an investment. I found him on a Sunday morning, high on a new market win. I spread the renderings on the dining table. "Graham," I said, my voice full of enthusiasm, "Ridgeview is a Tier 1 asset, but its tech is Tier 3. We are missing a huge opportunity." I laid out the plan. We do not just make it a smart home, we make it a green smart home. We upgrade the network backbone. We add integrated environmental controls. We make it fully automated. It will add at least 10% to the property value. And more importantly, it gives you a killer new talking point for investors. You will not just be a fund manager, you will be a sustainable innovator. His eyes lit up. Sustainable innovator. He loved the sound of it. He loved the branding. How much, he asked. A full upgrade, properly integrated, maybe 150,000, but the ROI in your brand value will be triple that. Do it, he said immediately, not even looking at the detailed budget. Handle it, full discretion. I want it done before the Q4 push. He signed the primary work order, the one authorizing the budget from the LLC account, without reading the attachments, and in those attachments, buried in 16 pages of dense technical specifications and warranty clauses, was Addendum 4B, a simple paragraph my friend at Monroe Vale had helped me draft. It stated that all integrated low-voltage audiovisual and data capture systems, being proprietary designs of Elena Ward Designs, LLC, remained the intellectual and physical property of the designer. It granted Elena Ward Designs, LLC, sole administrative access and control over said systems, as they were integral to the structural and acoustic integrity of the final design. He signed his rights away with a flourish of his expensive pen. The crew I hired was a specialty audio-visual team I had used on a recording studio project. They were discreet, brilliant, and accustomed to unusual requests for acoustic perfection. They were not, however, installers from a big-box security store. They reported only to me. We are opening the walls in the great room, the master, and the downstairs lounge, I told the team lead, handing him the revised schematics. We are rerunning all the low-voltage conduit. The moment the walnut panels in the great room were carefully stacked aside, revealing the skeleton of the house, my real work began. I had them install a series of high-fidelity boundary microphones. In the design plans, they were labeled acoustic optimization sensors. They were tiny, embedded into the joists themselves, and pointed toward the room. We placed them every 6 feet, behind the new metal grille of the redesigned air return, and behind 2 strategic, custom-milled wooden panels. We installed broadcast-quality pinhole cameras. They were dark mode enabled, powered over the new Cat6 cables. To anyone else, the panels looked like solid, decorative walnuts. But I knew that a precise, millimeter-wide hole drilled at the center of a dark wood knot is invisible to the naked eye. All the shielded cables from the microphones and cameras did not run to the main security hub in the mudroom. Graham knew where that was. Instead, they were routed through the ceiling plenum, down a PVC conduit I had labeled Greywater Sensor Array, and terminated in the back of the pantry, behind a false wall panel I designed. Behind that panel was a small, rack-mounted, encrypted mini-server. It had its own dedicated, firewalled network connection, completely separate from the home's main Wi-Fi, which I knew he would control. The server was programmed with one simple instruction to record all audio and video feeds on a loop, but to automatically isolate, encrypt, and upload any triggered events to a secure offshore cloud storage account, an account that existed only in my name. While the walls were open, I did other work. I took the printouts I had gathered, the statements from the secret SPV account, the wire transfers from our house LLC to the Summit Ridge Shell Company, the PDFs of his emails to his lawyers, exploring the viability of his post-nuptial agreement, the one he had me sign, claiming it was just a formality for the fund, a draft of a new post-nup he had clearly started and then abandoned, one that would have cut me out entirely. I placed them all inside heavy-duty, fireproof document envelopes. They were flat, rigid, one by one. I slid them into the wall cavities, between the studs, behind the new rock wool insulation, one in the great room, one in the master bedroom, one in the wall of his private study. They were my physical backup. If this house ever burned down, those documents would be the only things left in the ashes. Then came the software. I called my friend Alex, a programmer I had known since college, the only person I trusted. Alex, I said, I need a custom module for a Crestron smart home system. It is a specific request for a client. How specific? He asked. I need the system to initiate a trigger event. I need it to recognize when 2 specific mobile devices are present on its network, not just the main Wi-Fi, but scanning for their Bluetooth and Wi-Fi direct handshakes. If both those devices are in the house for more than say 20 minutes. I need the system to flag that entire time block, from 5 minutes before they arrived, and lock the recordings. And I need it to send a secondary, high-priority backup of that file to a separate cloud target, and it needs to be completely invisible in the main user interface. There was a long pause. "Elena," he said, "this is not for a client. Is it?" "No," I said. "This is the guy, the husband." "Yes." "All right," Alex said. "He is an idiot. Send me the system specs." 2 days later, I had the code. I uploaded it myself, directly onto the server through a hardline connection. I named the module HVAC Eco Efficiency Monitor. It looked like a boring piece of green energy software. I added the MAC addresses for Graham's phone and Sienna Hart's phone, which I had easily gotten from our shared Wi-Fi log. The trap was now automated. Finally, the great room wall. "We are creating a fully immersive presentation space," I told the AV team. In the deep void behind the walnut planks, we installed a series of high-output, flat-panel, invisible speakers. They are designed to be plastered over, or in this case, hidden behind wood. The sound would be crystal clear, seeming to come from the wall itself, and in the ceiling, tucked inside what looked like a simple recessed light housing, we mounted a high-definition, short-throw laser projector. It was aimed perfectly at the largest, flattest section of the feature wall. The entire system mics, cameras, speakers, projector was tied to one command. It was not on the main control panels. It was hidden deep in the system's administrative settings. I could activate it from my phone with a 5-digit code. Or, I had Alex program a voice command, a phrase so specific, so unlikely to ever be said by accident, that it would act as a verbal key. Execute Ridgeview Protocol Final Presentation. The day the renovation was finished, I stood alone in the empty great room. The contractors were gone. The smell of sawdust and stain was still in the air. The walnut wall was seamless, beautiful, and warm. It looked exactly as I had designed it. I pulled out my phone. I navigated to the hidden admin panel. I pressed the button I had labeled Test Mode. The lights in the room dimmed automatically. There was a faint, almost imperceptible whir from the ceiling. A perfectly square, bright white light snapped onto the center of the walnut wall. The fan from the hidden projector was no louder than a whisper. It was the only sound in the room. It sounded like the house was breathing. I let it run for 60 seconds, then shut it down. I turned off the lights and locked the door. As I walked to my car, I felt a strange shift in gravity. Graham thought he owned this magnificent house, this asset he would use to build his new life. He thought he owned me, the wife he would relegate to pillows and paint. But as I drove away, I knew the truth. I did not just design that house, I possessed it. I owned every single centimeter of its memory, and it was just waiting for him to make a deposit. The HVAC Eco Efficiency Monitor module worked perfectly. My offshore cloud account began to populate, the automated trigger. Sensing Graham's phone and Sienna's phone together in the house for more than 20 minutes, had already fired dozens of times. I sat in my real office, the one for Elena Ward Designs, and watched the files. I was no longer a wife, I was a surveillance operator. The harvest was sickeningly rich. It was not just the sordid, predictable clips of them kissing against the walnut wall, or sinking into the custom sofa I had designed. It was the audio. The microphones I had installed were broadcast quality. I heard every word. I watched a file from 3 weeks ago. Sienna, swirling Graham's Cabernet in his glass. The investors are old money. Graham. They do not care about sustainability. They care about returns. Just move the rest of the liquid assets through the SPV before the Q4 statements. And Graham's voice, arrogant and smooth. I am already doing it. I am diverting another $100K from the Ridgeview operating account. Elena will never notice. She just thinks it is for consulting. She just signs what I tell her to. I watched another. From a week later, they were lying in the master bedroom, my bedroom. Her voice was muffled. What if she finds out about the fund about us? Let her, Graham laughed. That laugh. She is a decorator, baby. She designs pillows. She will find out when I am already gone. The post-nup is ironclad. She will get the apartment, a little alimony, and she will be fine. She is not built for this level. You are dozens of videos, dozens of data points. He was not just cheating on me. He was actively, criminally defrauding his investors using our shared assets as a slush fund, and he was planning to leave me with the wreckage. The next day, I booked a meeting under a false name. I met Maya Levin at a loud, anonymous coffee shop in a neighborhood neither of us ever went to. Maya and I had come up together at Monroe Vale Trial Support. She had gone to law school at night. Now, she was a partner at a terrifying firm that specialized in financial crimes. "Elena," she said, looking surprised but hiding it well. She slid into the booth. "This is a long way from home for you. You look thin. I have a hypothetical." "Maya," I said, pushing a prepaid debit card across the table. "This is for 1 hour of your time." She looked at the card, then at my face. She slid it into her pocket without a word. "I am listening. Hypothetically, a fund manager, he has a private asset, let's say a house, that is owned by an LLC he shares with his wife. He is using this house for non-business meetings, but he is also telling investors, verbally, that this house is a key brand asset that guarantees the fund's stability." Maya's expression did not change. "Go on." "Hypothetically, he is also siphoning money from that house's LLC account, money that is half his wife's, and funneling it through a shell company into a new, secret special purpose vehicle, a fund his current investors know nothing about. He is doing all of this while using the house to court new money, telling them the new fund is clean." Maya sipped her coffee. She was silent for a long time. "Okay," she said, setting the cup down. "Hypothetically, your fund manager is committing several felonies. Using an undisclosed asset to secure verbal commitments is material misrepresentation. Funneling joint assets into a secret SPV is textbook wire fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. The fact that he is lying to his wife is a domestic issue. The fact that he is lying to his investors, both current and future, is a federal crime. What would, hypothetically, happen to him? If someone," Maya said, her eyes like steel, "were to drop a well-organized, anonymous tip on the desk of the right person at the SEC, they would not just walk, they would run. They would open an investigation so fast your friend's head would spin. They would freeze his assets. They would subpoena his partners. They would claw back every dime. They would crucify him, hypothetically." "Thank you, Maya," I said. That was all I needed. My first stop was a different bank. I opened a new business account under my LLC's name, an account Graham had no access to, no knowledge of. I redirected all my incoming client payments to that new account. The river of money that flowed from Elena Ward Designs into our joint checking account, the one he used for his consulting fees, dried up that same day. My second stop was the County Hall of Records. I filed for a certified copy of the Ridgeview deed and all its attachments. Then I went to my office and printed out a clean copy of Addendum 4B, the one stating my full ownership of all integrated technical systems in the house. I had my lawyer, my civil lawyer, file it as a fixture lien against the property, effective immediately. It was a public record. It was my legal shield. From that moment on, the surveillance system was not just my secret, it was my legally documented property. The backlash came, as expected, not from Graham, but from his family. His younger brother, Cole, called me that weekend. I let it ring twice, took a breath, and answered. "Elena, what the hell is going on?" He did not even say hello. "Graham said you are being completely insane about this Ridgeview event. He said you threatened him." "Hello? Cole? I just asked him to be respectful." "Respectful? You are ruining the biggest night of his career, all because he hired some branding girl. You know how many guys in his position have friends. You are supposed to be a team. You are supposed to protect the family image, not blow it up because of some online influencer." I stayed perfectly silent. I let his words hang in the air. "Are you even listening?" "Elena, You are going to destroy everything he has built, everything we have built. Cole, I said, my voice cold and calm. Did Graham tell you about the secret SPV? Did he tell you about the Summit Ridge Shell Company? Did he tell you about the money he is moving from the house account? A beat of silence. What? That is just business. That is not your concern. You just need to show up, wear a beige dress, and smile. Do you understand me? Thank you for your input, Cole, I said, and I hung up. I saved the audio file of the call, marked the file, witness Cole Sinclair, and added the note, hostile, demonstrates active family knowledge and concealment of fraudulent activity. That night, I had my best friend, Nina, over to my studio. She was a brilliant interior stylist, the only one who had ever looked at Graham with skepticism. I poured 2 large glasses of Sancerre. Okay, she said, tucking her legs under her on the sofa. You have been a ghost for a month. What is it? No, wait, let me guess. It is him. It is Sienna. I looked at her, and for the first time, I told someone everything. The cameras, the microphones, the SPV, the lies, the files on my server. She listened, her face growing pale, then hard. When I finished, she did not hug me. She did not offer me platitudes. She just stared into her wine. Elle, she said finally, you have him. You have him dead to rights, legally and financially. So what is the real endgame? What do you want? Do you want justice? Or do you want him to come back crying, I thought about it. The old Elena, the one who loved him, would have wanted him to cry. She would have wanted him to see the error of his ways, to fall to his knees, to beg for the life he was throwing away. That Elena was gone. I do not care if he cries, I said. I want justice. I want him to be held accountable for the crimes, not just the affair. Good, she said, raising her glass. That is a much cleaner brief. We spent the next 4 hours at my computer. We were not grieving wives. We were the litigation support team from Monroe Vale. Prepping for trial, we created 3 digital folders. Dossier 1. The domestic. I named it Personal Conduct. This folder contained the clips of him and Sienna, the timeline of the hair clip, the receipts for his new wardrobe. The audio log of Cole's threatening phone call. This was the character file. Dossier 2. The financial. I named it Halcyon SPV Evidence. This held the bank statements, the wire transfers to Summit Ridge, the screenshots of the SPV account, and most importantly, the audio-video files from the wall. I edited them myself. I cut out the purely sexual, private moments. I had no interest in creating a sex tape. I was creating a prosecutor's brief. I kept only the audio where they discussed the fund, where Graham boasted about lying to investors, where Sienna strategized how to move the money, where Graham explicitly stated his plan to cut me out of my own life. Dossier 3. The legal. I named it Ridgeview System Ownership. This held the signed renovation contract, the fully executed Addendum 4B, the public filing of the fixture line. This was my shield. This proved the recordings were not illegal wiretapping. They were asset protection, recorded on a system I legally owned and controlled. When we were done, it was almost 2 a.m. Nina stretched, yawning. So, what now? You send this to Maya. You send this to the SEC. No, I said, dragging all 3 folders into one final, master file. He is hosting a party. He is planning to use my house as his stage. He is going to stand right in front of that walnut wall and lie to 50 of the richest people in the state. I uploaded the master file, a single, compressed video. I logged into the Ridgeview server's hidden administrative panel and placed the file in the presentation folder, right next to the glossy, stupid marketing video I knew his team had prepared. I named my file Halcyon Ridge Q4 Strategy Final Cut. It was ready. He wants the house to tell a story, I said, closing the laptop. I am just going to make sure it tells the right one. The invitation arrived 2 days before the party. Graham slid it across the marble island in our city apartment, a small, satisfied smile on his face. It was thick, heavy cardstock, the color of old money, with silver. Razor-sharp embossing Ridgeview Preview. An evening with Halcyon Ridge Capital. I had them list you as the hostess, he said, tapping the card. He said it as if he were granting me a favor, like a king knighting a peasant. Hostess, the official title for the wife who smiles and makes sure the glasses are full. Thank you, I said, picking it up. The weight of it felt like a tombstone. That night, at the dinner table, the air was thick with things unsaid. He was on his phone, as usual, scrolling through market data or, more likely, messages from her. I put my fork down. Graham, he sighed, the sound of a man deeply inconvenienced. What? Elena. I am going to say this one more time, and then I am done. I kept my voice perfectly even, the way I had been taught at Monroe Vale when addressing hostile counsel. If Sienna Hart steps foot in that house tomorrow night, I want to be perfectly clear. It will not just be the end of our marriage, it will be the end of your career. He finally put the phone down, his face flushing with anger. For God's sake, Elena, will you stop using your little courtroom language in the kitchen? It is pathetic. It is a party. It is my job. The investors love her. She is the face of the new brand. You are being theatrical and, frankly, embarrassing. I am not being theatrical, I said, holding his gaze. I am being factual. Do not bring her there. That is my final warning. He laughed. A short, barking sound. This is exactly why I need her. She understands the big picture. She is not afraid. You just worry about the paint colors. He stood up, throwing his napkin on his plate. And wear the beige dress tomorrow, the simple one. I want the investors focused on the deal, not distracted. I watched him walk away. The beige dress. The one he always said made me look appropriate, invisible. Of course, I said to his retreating back. He did not need the spotlight on me. I was preparing a spotlight so bright it would vaporize him. The train was accelerating. The track was out. The next message came later that night. A text from his brother. Cole. The family was circling the wagons, protecting their golden goose. His message was long, a desperate, whining plea. Lainey, please, I am begging you. Graham said you are upset. Do not do anything stupid tomorrow. Do not make a scene. You have absolutely no idea how many women would kill to live the life you have. Do not ruin the most important night of my brother's life over nothing. We are a family. We are a family. The words hung there. I read the text. Kill to live the life you have. The life of a ghost in a beige dress. Married to a man who despised her. I felt a strange, cold calm. The deep, aching pain I had expected to feel simply was not there. It was like a nerve that had been severed. I typed a single reply, the simple, standard image of a thumbs up, and hit send. No words. It was time to arm the missiles. I went into my home office and locked the door. My first call was to a secure, encrypted video line I had been given. A face appeared on my screen, a woman in her 50s, sharp eyes, hair pulled back, no expression. She was a senior intake agent at the SEC's whistleblower office. Ms. Ward, she said. It was not a greeting. I am sending the primary dossier now, I said. I hit the upload button on Dossier 2, the financials. You will find bank statements, wire transfer confirmations from a shared LLC to a shell corporation, and all corresponding audio and video files from the asset in question. The audio explicitly details the fund manager's intent to defraud Halcyon Ridge's current limited partners. It also details his plan to use undisclosed, commingled assets to secure capital for a new, unregistered special-purpose vehicle. I watched her face as the file list populated on her end. Her professional mask tightened. She saw the number of files, the timestamps, the sheer volume. This is extremely comprehensive. Ms. Ward, she said. Her voice had dropped, losing its bureaucratic monotone. It was serious. We will be reviewing this tonight. Thank you for coming forward. The call ended. The first missile was launched. The second missile went to Maya. I sent her everything, all 3 dossiers, the personal, the financial, and the legal shield. My note to her was brief. Maya, here is the full, unedited case file. I am handling the domestic situation at the event tomorrow night. But if anything goes wrong, if they try to silence me or bury this, I want the financial crimes prosecuted through official channels. I do not want this to disappear in a quiet, closed-door settlement between Graham's lawyers and the board. I want this on the public record. Burn him to the ground, legally. Her reply came back in less than 1 minute. Consider it done. The third missile was for insurance. I opened an anonymous, encrypted email client and composed a new message. It was addressed to the public tip line for Numbers Nerves, the most ruthless financial investigative podcast in the country. They had taken down 2 different hedge funds last year. The subject line read, "Tip want to hear a smart house talk about insider deals at Halcyon Ridge Capital." The body of the email was simple. The Ridgeview preview event. Tomorrow night. Be there. Or just listen. You will not be disappointed. I attached a single 30-second audio clip from the wall. It was Graham's voice, clear as day, laughing as he told Sienna, "I am literally using Elena's decorating budget to fund the first stage of the SPV. She has no idea." I hit send. The day of the event. I arrived at Ridgeview at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The catering vans were already crowding the driveway. Florists were arranging massive, tasteless displays of white orchids that Sienna had undoubtedly ordered. I walked the house like a general reviewing the battlefield. I went from room to room. I checked the lighting cues. I checked the audio levels. I checked the network connection to the hidden server in the pantry. Everything was perfect. I went into the great room, stood before the looming walnut wall, and opened the hidden admin panel on my phone. I navigated to the presentation queue. There it was, Halcyon Brand Story v4.mp4. That was his file, glossy, full of lies, and right below it, Halcyon Ridge Q4, Strategy Final Cut, MP4. That was mine. I ran the test sequence one last time. Execute Ridgeview Protocol Final Presentation. The lights in the room dimmed precisely to 20%. The invisible projector in the ceiling whirred to life, no louder than a breath. A perfect bright white square snapped onto the center of the walnut wall. The invisible speakers emitted a faint, perfect click. Everything was operational. I ended the test. One last piece of business. I went to the downstairs guest bathroom, the one with the black marble. In my clutch, I had a thin, letter-sized envelope. Inside was a crisp, notarized copy of the post-nuptial agreement, the one he had signed, just for fun, 7 years ago, after we had both had too much wine on our anniversary, the one where he, in a fit of drunken, performative romance, had agreed to a clause that said any proven act of infidelity would void the standard asset split and grant me sole ownership of the Ridgeview property. He thought it was a joke. I had it notarized the next day. I slid the envelope behind the heavy, metal ventilation grill. A little insurance. A card I did not think I would need to play, but one I was glad to have hidden in the wall. At 6:30, I was downstairs. I was wearing a beige dress. I looked invisible. I looked harmless. I looked appropriate. Through the massive glass walls, I could see the first headlights, a line of expensive, black cars, winding their way up the long driveway. The investors were arriving. I stood in the center of the great room. The house was humming, alive with the chatter of the catering staff and the soft, ambient music. I placed my palm flat against the cool, smooth surface of the walnut wall. I could almost feel the electronics sleeping just beneath the veneer. "Okay," I whispered to the room, so low no one could hear. "I do not have to talk much tonight. You guys are doing all the work." By 8 o'clock, Ridgeview was saturated. The noise was the first thing that hit you, a high-pitched, brittle wave of laughter and shouting, bouncing off the high ceilings I had specified and the hard, imported stone floors. The air was thick with competing perfumes. the smell of expensive champagne, and the aroma of seared scallops from the catering stations. Dozens of people, investors in severe, dark suits, their wives in glittering, surgically enhanced perfection, partners from Graham's fund, laughing too loudly at his jokes, a handful of young, sharp-featured social media influencers Sienna had invited, all holding their phones up to capture the vibe. They drifted through my rooms, sipping my wine, touching the surfaces I had bled over. "It is just magnificent," a woman in a red dress said to her husband, running her hand along the walnut wall. "Graham has such impeccable taste." "The man is a kingmaker," her husband replied, not even looking at the wall, just scanning the crowd for a bigger target. "Everything he touches." Then, the sea of people parted. Graham made his entrance, not from the front door, but descending the grand, floating staircase I had designed. He was the king, surveying his court. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost $20,000, his smile wide and bright, his arms spread as if to embrace them all. And beside him, her hand linked in his arm, was Sienna Hart. She was wearing a slip dress of hammered silk, the exact shade of burnished copper I had used for the custom metal hardware throughout the house. The drawer pulls, the cabinet handles, the light fixture arms. She was not just attending the party. She was wearing the house. She was wearing my design. It was a statement, a deliberate, final mark of territory. "She is his creative partner, you know," someone whispered near me. "Halcyon Ridge's new direction." Graham kissed her on the cheek at the bottom of the stairs, a perfectly public, perfectly professional gesture that made my stomach clench. I stood by the buffet, invisible in my beige dress, a glass of water in my hand. I watched Sienna work the room. She was good. She touched arms, laughed with her head tilted back, and spoke in that breathless, urgent tone of marketing gurus. She gathered a small, important-looking circle of investors near the fireplace. "What you have to understand," she said, her voice carrying, "is that Graham did not just build a house. He built a narrative. This entire space tells the story of the Halcyon brand transparency, strength, forward-moving vision." Transparency. I almost laughed. She was gesturing at the very walls that were, at that moment, listening to her. I thought about the files on my server, the terabytes of deceit. This house told a story. All right, just not the one she was selling. A balding man with a bulbous red nose, one of Graham's oldest investors, pulled him aside, right near the walnut wall. He leaned in conspiratorially. "I have to say, Graham," he slurred, his voice low, "it is damned smart. Having a private space like this, fully off the books, so far from the eyes and ears of the goddamn regulators. My hidden microphones, designed to capture sound with perfect clarity, caught every single word. The investor's voice, now logged and time-stamped, was crystal clear. Graham just clapped him on the back, a modest, aw-shucks grin on his face. "We just like to have a comfortable place to talk strategy. Jim?" They both laughed and raised their glasses. My phone buzzed in my hand. I had set a custom vibration. It was Nina. She was here, circulating. My design friend. She was my eyes on the floor. I did not look at the message. I watched her, a glass of champagne in her hand, as she drifted away from the main group, pretending to admire a piece of art down the main hall. Her eyes scanning. She was looking for exits. She was watching for them to make their move. Graham and Sienna separated. He got pulled into a conversation with a potential new partner. Sienna, with a small, knowing smile, broke from her group and headed toward the hallway, toward the stairs, toward the master bedroom. 2 minutes later, Graham excused himself. "One moment. Gentlemen, the king must check on his castle." He followed her path. My phone buzzed again. I did not need to look. I knew what it was. Nina was confirming. I turned away from the crowd and moved to a quiet alcove by the window. I pulled my phone from my clutch. The screen was bright. A new text from Nina. "Master bedroom. The door just closed. Sienna plus Graham. 12 minutes and counting." I closed the text, I opened the app. The one that looked like a simple smart home controller. I bypassed the main living room and kitchen feeds. I tapped the icon labeled MSTR Bed 01. The screen filled with the feed from the pinhole camera I had hidden in the reclaimed wood ceiling beam. The angle was perfect. Looking down on the king-sized bed and the seating area by the window, there they were. He was not kissing her. He was pacing, agitated, running his hands through his hair. She was standing by the window, arms crossed, furious. "You said she would be fine." Sienna's voice came through my earpiece, sharp and clear from the boundary mic in the headboard. "She threatened you this morning. She knows Graham. She knows about me." "She knows nothing," he spat. "She is guessing. She is emotional. She is angry I am spending money on the brand and not on her. That is all. It is handled." Handled. She is downstairs right now, looking like a ghost at a funeral. What if she makes a scene? What if she talks to one of the investors? "She will not," Graham said, his voice dropping to that cold, dangerous tone I knew so well. He grabbed her arms. "Listen to me. After tonight, it does not matter what she knows. When this new money comes in, when the SPV is fully capitalized, she is gone. I am already having legal cleanup paperwork to have her kicked out of this house." "And the post-nup?" she asked, her voice a little steadier. "It is ironclad." He lied. He actually believed it. "She gets the city apartment. She gets her alimony. She is not entitled to Halcyon, and she is not entitled to this house. It is a corporate asset." Sienna relaxed, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Good. I want her gone. I want her gone. And I want this house." Graham pulled her close. The audio was so good. I could hear the rustle of their clothing. "And you will have it," he whispered, his lips near her ear. "After the new fund closes, I am gifting it to you. We will transfer the deed to an offshore LLC, all in your name, a clean asset, my gift to you, for making all of this happen." He was gifting her my house, which he had paid for with my money. He was going to use an offshore account to hide it from me, just as he had hidden the rest of his crimes. I felt nothing, no tears, no rage. It was just data, the final corroborating piece of evidence. I looked at the timestamp on the recording. 22 minutes. The HVAC Eco Efficiency Monitor module had already recognized their phones. It had already triggered the high-priority backup. This file was already safe in the cloud. I had him. I had him on wire fraud, investor fraud, breach of contract, and now, a clear, verbalized conspiracy to hide marital assets. I closed the app. I slipped my phone back into my clutch and turned back to the party. The noise, the laughter, it all seemed very far away. A few minutes later, they reappeared at the top of the stairs. All smiles, composed, ready for the main event. They descended together, a power couple. Graham walked to the center of the great room, right in front of the looming walnut wall. He picked up a champagne flute and tapped it with a knife. The ringing sound cut through the chatter. "Friends, partners, welcome," he beamed, his voice echoing. "Welcome to Ridgeview. Welcome to the future of Halcyon Ridge Capital." Polite applause. "You have seen the space," he continued. "You have felt the energy. Now, I want to show you the vision." He gets to the wall. "If you will all direct your attention here, I have a short presentation on our new strategy, the roadmap for the next 5 years. He nodded to a tech assistant in the corner, who was waiting to press play on the marketing video. I stood at the absolute back of the room, near the hallway. No one was looking at me. All eyes were on Graham, the charismatic king. They were all looking at the wall. I slipped my hand into my clutch. My fingers found my phone. I brought it out, shielding the screen with my body. I opened the smart home app. I navigated to the hidden admin panel. There it was, the presentation cue. Halcyon Brand Story v4.mp4, Halcyon Ridge Q4, Strategy Final Cut, MP4. My finger hovered over my file. Just one tap. That is all it would take to swap the feed. He believed he was controlling the narrative. He had no idea I was the one running the show. Graham raised his glass high, the crystal catching the light from the custom fixtures. His smile was a high-wattage beam of pure confidence, a smile that had launched $1 billion in assets. "And so," he boomed, his voice full of a sincerity he had practiced in the mirror, "I want to toast to the future, to Halcyon Ridge, but most importantly, I want to toast to transparency, because that, my friends, is what we are building here. An honest, open, and transparent future for all of us." He drank a deep, satisfied swallow. "Thank you. Enjoy the evening." As the first wave of polite applause rippled through the room, the lights changed. They did not just dim, they executed a programmed cue. The overheads faded to black, and the perimeter sconces dropped to exactly 20%, throwing the room into dramatic, cinematic shadow. The applause died instantly, replaced by a collective hush of expectation. All eyes turned to the massive, dark walnut wall. It flickered to life. The hidden laser projector was silent. The image razor-sharp. The video started beautifully. It was my work, my original design portfolio, a slow, sweeping drone shot I had commissioned, flying over the mist-covered hills toward Ridgeview at sunrise. A close-up of sunlight hitting the marble island in the kitchen. A shot of the floating staircase, the light catching the grain of the wood. I heard people murmur, impressed. Stunning. Beautiful. Graham stood beside Sienna, a look of profound pride on his face. He thought this was his video, the glossy brand film his marketing team had made. He put his arm around Sienna's waist, pulling her close as they watched the king and his new queen, accepting the praise. The music swelled. The shot of the staircase dissolved and shattered. It did not fade to black. It was a hard, jarring cut, like a slipped film reel. The image was replaced by something else entirely. It was grainy. Shot from a high, strange angle, the color was slightly off. It was the feed from the pinhole camera in the great room's air return grill. On the wall, 20 feet high, was Graham Sinclair and Sienna Hart. They were standing on the exact spot where Mrs. Danvers was now standing, and they were kissing. Not a polite peck. It was a desperate, frantic, claiming kiss. The room went utterly, profoundly silent. The only sound in the entire house was now coming from the invisible speakers embedded in the wall. Sienna's voice, amplified, whispering against his mouth. "Are you sure? Just make sure the money is clean." And Graham's voice, low and thick with arrogance. "It will be. It moves from the House LLC to the Summit Shell. It sits in Cayman for 48 hours. Then it routes back to the new SPV. Clean as a whistle. No one will ever trace it back to us." A woman in the front row, the wife of a major investor, made a sound like a strangled bird. Someone in the back laughed, a high, nervous bark, still desperately hoping this was some bizarre, edgy joke. "What is this?" a man whispered, his voice cracking. "Is this part of the—" But the lawyers in the room were not laughing. I watched their faces, the men and women who ran compliance for the pension funds. Their faces were not confused or amused. They were pale. They were ashen. They knew exactly what moving money through Cayman meant. They knew they were standing in a crime scene. The video cut again, black screen, then new footage. It was the master bedroom, the angle from the ceiling beam. The image was heavily pixelated. I had blurred their bodies. I was not interested in showing the affair. I was interested in proving the conspiracy. The audio, however, was perfectly, terrifyingly clear. Graham's voice. "Elena is just part of the brand for now. She is the past. You are the future. As soon as this new fund is capitalized, she is gone." As he spoke, text and images overlaid the blurred footage. A screenshot of an email, zoomed in so everyone could read it. It was from Graham, to a lawyer in Zurich. Subject: New investor pool undisclosed. The body of the email detailed a private, off-the-books side deal with a 3-person investor group, capitalizing the new SPV. A man in the front row, Jim, the one who had been drunkenly congratulating Graham earlier, made a loud choking sound. He was one of Halcyon's original investors, and his name was not on that email. The montage began. The pacing, which I had edited for weeks, accelerated. It was a rapid-fire, courtroom-style assault. Cut. A new angle. The kitchen. From the camera in the range hood. Sienna, perched on a bar stool, sipping wine. Audio. Sienna. So you just tell them the operating costs for Ridgeview went up. What, 30%? That is how you cover the transfer. Cut. A new image. Graham, in his study, sketching on a whiteboard. The camera caught it all. He was drawing the exact flowchart. Ridgeview LLC joint, Summit Ridge, Shell, Cayman Holding, Halcyon SPV, new, audio Graham. Exactly. It is just consulting fees for the renovation. As long as they do not know Ridgeview is the source of the seed capital, no one can ever pull the thread. The image changed again. A black screen and a spreadsheet. The one I had built from the bank records, line by line, the wire transfers scrolled up the wall. March 12th. Ridgeview LLC. Summit Ridge. Advisors. 75 TAS. 1,000 HARD. April 2nd. Ridgeview LLC. Summit Ridge. Gus Advisors. 50,000. May 18th. Ridgeview LLC. Summit Ridge. Advisors. $100,000. It just kept going. The room was so quiet I could hear the ice melting in the glasses. Then, the final audio, a new voice, a woman. She was calm, professional, and cold. It was the recording of my call with the SEC intake agent, the call I had legally recorded. SEC agent audio. So, to confirm, Mr. Sinclair used this co-owned asset, the Ridgeview property, to verbally secure investor commitments, while simultaneously siphoning funds from that same asset's operating budget. My voice audio. Yes, that is correct. SEC agent audio. And you have documentation proving the wire transfers to the undisclosed SPV. My voice audio. Yes, I am uploading them now. The sound of the words SEC and uploading them now was the kill shot. The pretense that this was a joke, a mistake, a fantasy, evaporated. Sienna, her face a mask of white, blind panic, grabbed Graham's arm, her nails dug into his bespoke suit. Graham, stop this, she shrieked, her voice thin and desperate. Turn it off now. He was frozen. He stared at the wall, his mouth open, his skin slick with sweat. He fumbled for his own phone, stabbing at the smart home app I had installed for him. But he was a user. I was the administrator. He did not have the override codes. He did not know the kill commands. He had never bothered to read the manual. I cannot, he stammered, swiping uselessly at a screen that would not obey him. It is not. It is locked. A woman stepped forward from the front row. Mrs. Danvers, a board member for a massive pension fund. A woman who controlled a checkbook with 9 zeros. She did not panic. She did not scream. She calmly, deliberately, pulled out her own phone, held it up high, and aimed it at the wall. She hit the record button. She was not hiding it. She was gathering evidence for her own legal team. Her eyes, when they flicked to Graham, were not angry. They were cold, assessing. It was the look of a butcher calculating the weight of a carcass. The montage on the wall ended. The screen cut to black. The room held its breath. Then, simple, white, sans serif text appeared, filling the 20-foot space. Whistleblower file HR 47. Received timestamp November 14th, 2025. 16:30. EST. The text hung there, an epitaph, and in the crushing, deafening silence of that room, a single, sharp, electronic sound, a ping, the notification chime for a new email. It came from Graham's pocket. Every single head in the room swiveled toward him. The timing was so perfect, so precise, it felt orchestrated by a vengeful god. He fumbled for his phone, the one he had just been uselessly swiping. Mrs. Danvers and the other lawyers frowned. That sound, at that exact second, did not feel like a coincidence. It felt like a confirmation. It felt like the other end of the investigation had just replied. The show was over. The white text, "Whistleblower file HR 47, hung on the wall for 10 full seconds before the projector shut down, plunging the room back into its dim, 20% capacity lighting. The silence that followed was a physical thing. It was a vacuum, sucking the air out of the room. It lasted for 3 heartbeats. Then, the explosion. It was not one sound, but a cascade. A woman gasped. A high, sharp sound of pure shock. A man swore. Jesus Christ. Glasses clinked as people stumbled back, bumping into each other. And then, the voices. A dozen overlapping, panicked conversations. Did you see the numbers? Call legal. Call Mark. Get him on the phone now. He is finished. Oh my God. He is finished. Who is JL? I am sending this to my compliance team. I was never here. People were not running for the exit. They were scrambling for the garden, for the hallways, for any corner where they could get a signal and make a call. Phones were out everywhere, not just Mrs. Danvers's. People were filming the crowd, filming Graham, filming Sienna, as if to prove they were witnesses, not participants. In the center of this chaos, Graham finally unfroze. His panic, which had held him paralyzed, now found a target. His face, which was slick and white, contorted into a mask of pure rage. He saw me, standing at the back of the room, invisible in my beige dress, and he lunged. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pushing past a terrified investor. He grabbed my wrist, his fingers biting into the bone like a vice. "You," he hissed, his face inches from mine. His breath was hot and smelled of champagne and terror. "You did this, you bitch. That is illegal. That is illegal wiretapping. You are going to prison. I will put you in prison for this." His grip was crushing. The old Elena would have flinched, cried, and tried to pull away. I did not move. I just looked at his hand on my arm, then back up to his wild, terrified eyes. "No, Graham," I said, my voice so quiet he had to lean in to hear it, which only made him angrier. "It is not. I would refer you to your renovation contract, specifically, Addendum 4, Section B, Paragraph 1. His eyes were blank. He had no idea what I was talking about. "The one you signed," I continued, "on May 10th of last year, the one that grants me, as the designer and owner of the proprietary technical systems, sole administrative rights and control, the one that states all captured data is the property of my LLC for quality assurance and system integrity. You signed it, Graham. You gave me permission." He stared at me, his rage short-circuiting against the cold, hard wall of my preparedness. He did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. He understood that I had a document. Before he could speak, his brother, Cole, was there, shoving his way through the crowd. "Get your hands off her, Graham," he yelled, pulling his brother back, not to protect me, but to protect the family name from the optics of violence. He then turned that same snarling face on me. "You," he screamed, "you did this. You are a gold-digging snake. You ruined him. You ruined everything. He built all of this. He gave you this house. He gave you everything." The accusations. Gold digger, snake, bounced around the half-empty room. He was projecting, trying to build the narrative, the one where I was the villain. It did not work. "Young man," a voice cut through the air, sharp as glass. It was Mrs. Danvers. She had finished her call and was walking toward us, her face a mask of cold fury. Cole faltered. She did not look at me. She fixed her gaze on Cole. "Your brother gave her nothing. It appears he took from us. If what we just saw on that wall is true, your brother did not build this. He stole it. He is the one who broke this, not her." Cole's mouth opened and closed. He had no reply for a woman who controlled a $10 billion pension fund. And then, my phone rang. It was not Nina. It was an unknown number, a Washington, D.C. area code. I looked at Graham, at Cole, at Mrs. Danvers, who was now watching me. Not him. I answered it. I put it on speakerphone. Just loud enough. "This is Elena Ward." "Ms. Ward," a man's voice. Brisk. No nonsense. "This is David Kresh, of the Enforcement Division. We have received your file. I have 2 preliminary questions regarding the timeline of the SPV's capitalization. Did this coincide with the first quarter investor reports?" Every lawyer in earshot flinched at the words Enforcement Division. "Yes, it did," I said, my voice clear and professional. "If you cross-reference the transfer dates with the Q1 report filings, you will see the discrepancies." "We see that," the voice said. "We will be in touch within the hour to secure the chain of custody for the original files. Do not speak to Halcyon Ridge's internal counsel. Do you understand?" "I understand perfectly," I said. "Thank you for confirming receipt of the SEC investigation file." I hung up. SEC investigation. I said the words deliberately. I watched the color drain from Graham's face. He looked like he was going to be sick. My phone immediately rang again. This time, it was Halcyon Ridge's corporate number. It was JL, the fund's general counsel. I let it ring. A second later, Graham's phone buzzed in his hand, the one he was still holding up, uselessly. He looked down at it, and from where I stood, I could see the banner preview of the text message that lit up his screen. Everyone could. JL, freeze him out. The board is calling an emergency session. Legal wants him off everything. Do not talk to him. He saw us read it. He saw Mrs. Danvers read it. He fumbled, trying to shove the phone back into his pocket, but it was too late. The betrayal was public. His own lawyer, his own partner, had just cut him loose, in a dark corner of the room, by the terrace doors. I saw Sienna. She was not near Graham. She was huddled with one of the young influencers she had invited, and I could hear her, thanks to the microphone array that was still, and always, listening. "You have to say he manipulated you," her friend was whispering, fast and hard. "You say you were a victim. You were creative. He handled the money. You had no idea. You need to get out in front of this. You need to cooperate with the authorities. It is the only way you can survive this." I watched Sienna, her face streaked with tears of panic, nodding furiously. She was already crafting her new narrative. The teammate, the future, the woman he was gifting my house to, was already preparing to testify against him to save herself. "It is a lie." Graham finally roared. Finding his voice, it was a desperate, primal scream. He pointed at the dark wall. "It is fake. It is all fake. It is a deep fake. It is AI. She faked it all. She is crazy. She is trying to destroy me." He was babbling, his eyes wild, grasping for the buzzwords he had heard on the news. One of the other investors, a quiet man who ran a data security firm, had been standing in the corner, typing on his own phone. He looked up, his face grim. "I do not think so, Graham," he said, his voice cutting through the hysteria. "I have your quarterly reports on my server. The wire transfer numbers you just showed on that screen, I am looking at my statement from April. The numbers match, cent for cent. That is not a deepfake. That is a bank record." That was it, the final nail. Cole looked at Graham, at the data security investor, at Mrs. Danvers. He saw the closed circle. He saw that there was no way in, no way to defend this. The family was not a fortress. It was a liability, without a single word. Cole Sinclair, the man who had screamed at me about loyalty, turned and walked quietly out the back door, through the catering area, and disappeared. He did not even say goodbye to his brother. The party was over. The guests, or rather, the witnesses, filed out in silence, their faces grim. No one said goodbye. No one thanked the host. Finally, it was just me, Graham, and 2 men who had been standing by the door for the last 20 minutes. They were from Halcyon's law firm, The lead lawyer, a man I did not know, stepped forward. He did not look at Graham. He addressed the space between us. "Mr. Sinclair," he said, his voice flat and void of all emotion. "Pursuant to an emergency vote by the board, you are suspended from all duties at Halcyon Ridge Capital, effective immediately. Your access to all fund accounts and systems has been revoked." He continued, "A third-party forensics team will be here at 8 a.m. tomorrow to secure the premises and all in-house technical systems. We strongly recommend you do not touch, access, or in any way interfere with any computer, server, or smart home system in this house." He finally looked at Graham. "We will be in touch." The two lawyers turned and left. Graham stood alone in the middle of my great room, surrounded by half-empty glasses and the smell of defeat. He was staring at the blank walnut wall, his body shaking, but making no sound. The lawyer had said not to touch any systems. I looked at him, a ghost in my beige dress. I just smiled. A small, tight smile he could not see. That was exactly what I wanted. They were locking him out. They were coming to secure my evidence. The chain of custody was now, officially, theirs. The game was over. It was past 2 a.m. The last catering van had pulled away an hour ago. Sienna, Cole, the investors, the lawyers are all gone. They had scattered like roaches when the lights came on. Now, there was just us, Elena and Graham, standing in the ruins of the great room. The air was stale, smelling of spilled champagne and cold dread. The ambient lighting I had programmed, usually so warm and inviting, now cast a sickly yellow glow on the debris abandoned glasses, crushed napkins, and a dark, sticky spill of red wine on the floor. Graham was in the center of the room, standing by the dark, silent walnut wall. He was shaking, not a violent tremor, but a low-frequency vibration, a machine coming apart. He was muttering, to himself, to me, to the empty room. "It was just a little detour. Elena, that is all. A mistake, an emotional thing. It meant nothing." He looked up at me, his eyes desperate, bloodshot, searching for the wife he had dismissed, the woman he thought would fix this. "You had no right," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You had no right to destroy my entire life over a little bit of feeling. It was just a stupid affair." "A little detour," I said. My voice was calm. It seemed to echo in the cavernous room. I walked to the kitchen island, where my clutch was. I took out a folder. It was thick. I placed it on the marble. The sound a sharp slap in the silence. "This," I said, tapping the first page, "is the signed renovation contract, the one you signed 2 years ago." I flipped the page. "This is Addendum 4, Section B, the one that grants Elena Ward Designs, LLC, my company, full, sole, and proprietary ownership of all integrated audiovisual and data capture systems within the Ridgeview structure. Signed by you." I flipped the page again. "This is the fixture lien, filed with the county, legally attaching those systems to my LLC, not to the property. It is a public record." "Graham," I flipped again. "These are the server logs, the administrative access logs, showing my credentials, and only my credentials, have ever had control of the system." I looked up at him. I spoke clearly, slowly, as if to a child, the way I used to speak at Monroe Vale when I was briefing a new, dim-witted lawyer on a case he had not read. "This was not an illegal wiretap, Graham. This was an asset protection protocol, on my own property, my system, my rules. You were just a user who violated the terms of service." His blank, terrified stare dissolved back into rage. It was all he had left. "You think that will stand up?" he jailed, finding his voice again. "You think any court in the world will believe that they will see you for what you are? A crazy, jealous, vindictive wife. I will sue you. I will countersue. I will take everything. I will tell them you faked it all. I will." "You will what, Graham?" I asked. I walked past him, to the wall in the main hallway, the one with the black marble and the custom air return grill. I reached into my clutch, pulled out a small hex key, and undid the 4 tiny, invisible screws. The grill came away in my hand. I reached inside, into the darkness of the wall. My fingers found it. A simple, letter-sized envelope. The one I had hidden there. The one he had forgotten never existed. "You will tell the court about this?" I asked, holding it up. He stopped breathing. He knew what it was. "Our post-nup, Graham, the joke one, from our anniversary, the one you signed when you were drunk and romantic, trying to prove how much you loved me, how you would never, ever cheat." I pulled the document from the envelope. "The one where you agreed, in clear, notarized language, that if you were ever proven to be involved in an extramarital affair, you would forfeit all claims to the Ridgeview property and its contents." I let the words hang in the air. I had him. I had him on the infidelity clause, and I had the terabytes of high-definition proof I needed to invoke it. He took a step toward me, his hand outstretched, a desperate, animal sound in his throat. At that exact moment, the driveway lit up. Bright, flashing blue and red lights, followed by the intense white beams of 2 black, government-issue SUVs. They swept across the room, catching the panic on Graham's face, turning him into a stark, black-and-white photograph of a guilty man. I did not move. I just watched. The doorbell did not ring. There was a heavy official knock. Graham was frozen, staring at the lights, staring at the paper in my hand. "Did you call the cops?" he stammered. "No," I said. "I did not." The knocking came again, harder. I walked to the front door and opened it. 4 men and 2 women stood on my porch. 2 were in dark suits, holding briefcases, federal agents. The other 4 were in black tactical polos with forensics written on the back. They were the team from the fund, and they had brought their federal chaperones. "Ms. Ward," the lead agent said. "Yes, come in." They filed into the great room. The forensics team leader, a woman with a no-nonsense face, looked at the wall, then at Graham, who was standing there, shaking, still holding his useless phone. "We are here to secure the house systems," she said. "Of course," I replied. "This way." I led them to the pantry, to the false wall I had designed. I showed them the access panel. They opened it, revealing the humming mini-server, the rack of hard drives, the clean color-coded wiring. "That is the brain," I said. "It is all self-contained." Then I led them to the great room. I pointed to the specific, invisible seams in the walnut. "The primary microphones are here, and here. The cameras are behind the knots, here and here. The projector is in the ceiling, housing 04B. I was speaking my language, their language. The federal agent, the one named Kresh, nodded at me, a silent, professional acknowledgement. "Thank you for maintaining the chain of custody, Ms. Ward. Your cooperation is noted." He then turned to Graham. The air in the room went from cold to arctic. "Graham Sinclair," he said, his voice flat. He pulled a thick envelope from his briefcase. "You are hereby served with a federal subpoena and a notice of a formal investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission, in conjunction with the Department of Justice, for matters including, but not limited to, wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy to defraud investors." Graham did not take the envelope. His arms hung limply at his sides. The agent just let it drop to the floor in front of him. The forensics team was already working, carefully, clinically, removing the panels I had pointed to, exposing the guts of the house, wires, cables, and server boxes, gleaming under their flashlights. Graham was staring, transfixed, at the wall being dismembered, at the secret heart of the house being laid bare. I walked back to the kitchen island. I picked up one last, small envelope from my clutch. I walked over to Graham and placed it on the bar, right in front of him. He did not look at it. "What is that?" he whispered, his voice hollow. "More. That," I said, "is my own, the divorce petition. I filed it electronically this evening." He finally looked at me, his eyes dead. "I am citing financial fraud. conspiracy, and emotional cruelty. I said, "The infidelity is almost incidental." I picked up my clutch. I looked around the room, at the federal agents bagging my hard drives, at the forensics team photographing my wiring, at my husband, a hollow shell of a man, standing next to a subpoena he could not even pick up. "So, here is how it works, Graham," I said, my voice clear and final. "You get to keep the car, you get to keep your bespoke suits, and you get to keep your smoking, hollowed-out career. You get to keep that new Patek watch. You get to keep her if she will even answer your calls." I pointed to the wall, to the wires hanging down like severed arteries. "The house is mine, via the post-nup. The system is mine, via the contract, my money. The money I earned from my own clients is already in an account you will never touch. I have everything, all the proof, all the assets, all the power." I walked to the front door. "The rest of it," I said, looking back at him one last time, "I will let the house and the law talk to you." The sky was beginning to turn a pale, bruised purple as I stepped outside. Dawn, the air was cold and sharp, and it felt clean for the first time in years. I walked to my car, behind me, through the massive glass walls of the house I built. I could see him, a solitary, broken figure, standing motionless. He was surrounded by federal agents, and by the exposed, tangled guts of the walls he thought were only there to hang his art. The distant sound of a siren wailed, growing closer. I did not know if it was for him or for something else. It did not matter. I closed my car door. The sound a solid, final click in the morning air. I started the engine, and I drove away. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I see all your comments, and they mean the world to me. Where are you listening from tonight? Let me know in the comments so we can chat and share our thoughts. Please subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it a super hype to help this story be heard.